Hey book lovers, Kaylee here, and welcome back to the Enchanted Library. And I'm just gonna say it right off the bat, I get super nervous to do these types of videos, that's why I don't do them as much, but I love to talk about books. I just feel like I need to do this more to get out of my comfort zone and learn how to do it better, because so far, all I can think of is just gushing. I become incoherent. So, I've written down some of my thoughts, but if you are worried about spoilers, fear not, because I'm going to start this video with a non-spoilery quick review, and then I'm going to get into more specific details afterwards with fair warning. And from the title of this video, you already know what book I'm going to be talking about, and that is Onyx Ivory by Mindee Arnett. Now, I'm not a newcomer to the writing of Mindee Arnett. I did read her Avalon series, which is a sci-fi YA series, but this is the first time that I read something fantasy-based by her, and I'm not sure if she does have another fantasy-based series, which I might have to look into because I'm going to tell you, I loved this book. Recently, I have heard a bit of mixed reviews, but thinking back on reading this book, which I just finished probably about a week ago, I can't think of anything that I really disliked about it. I did end up giving it a 4 to a 4.5 star on Goodreads because I just thought that it was super engrossing, super well developed, and I loved every character. There wasn't one character that I just did not care about or that I had a throwaway thought about. Actually, no, that's a lie. Maybe there's a couple, but I will get into that in more spoilers. This world is fantastical. Like, I cannot wait until the next book in this series because I just want to see more of the world. I want to see more of the politics. I want to see more of the magic within it. And I want to see how these characters develop and change and grow. And I can't wait to get more. And I will say the main character, Kate, Trader Kate, is awesome. Like, she is so self-sufficient, she takes care of herself, she can handle herself, and she don't need no man to do it. I really, really love that about this series. I will be honest, I had no idea really what to expect going into this story. I knew the premise, which is that Trader Kate, her father had attempted to murder the king, and so he was executed and she sort of went out into exile. So she's been living on her own, surviving on her own ever since that had happened. And I knew that she worked for kind of like the Fantasyland Postal Service, and that she would end up coming across her first love, which was Prince Corwin, and she hadn't spoken to him since the events of her father trying to murder his father. But she comes across him, and he is in a wrecked carriage. He's the only survivor from an attack by night drakes. And night drakes are these vicious creatures who attack right as soon as the sun goes down until the sun comes up the next day. So everybody gets on lockdown and has these magical barriers to protect them in the night. But the really crazy thing is there are now day drakes, like daytime night drakes, who are just as vicious and attack, and there's no reasoning for it. Like, this is a whole new thing. So her and Corwin, Kate and Corwin, need to come together and figure out what's going on, because she can actually help things out because she is a wilder. But wilders are sort of banned and they can get murdered, so she has to keep this major secret and nobody knows it except for like minimal people, for good reason. And that's all I knew going into it. But it is so much more than that. Like, this book did not take a breath, kind of like how I'm not taking a breath talking about it. But I can't get over how much Mindee Arnett was able to pack into this story. And there was no point where I thought that there was a lull. There was no point where I was like, okay, let's just get on with this. Let's get back to the action. She involves so many different plot elements within this series that are so much bigger than what the initial synopsis is. I was just super, super impressed. So if that sounds interesting at all to you guys, I would definitely recommend reading this book, if you have not read it yet, obviously. If you have read it, or if you just don't care about spoilers, I'm just going to give you fair warning right now. I'm going to be getting into spoilery stuff next, because I'm going to be talking about characters, I'm going to be talking about plots, I'm going to be talking about just all of the things. Also, I am going to be talking about things that I did not like. There are very few, there are a couple, obviously, otherwise I would have given it a 5 star, but you know what, for the most part, loved it. As I was reading this book, I was tweeting about it and I was super excited. I had planned only on reading it the first night. I planned on giving it 2 hours of reading, and I tweeted as much, and then Mindee Arnett tweeted me back saying, well, adulting does suck sometimes, basically. But she thought that I should stay up later to read it because as an adult, I can choose to do that, and I chose to do that. I ended up staying up for about 4 hours reading this book, and then I finished it the next day because I did have to work. And I'm so happy that I stayed up later, because then I got to finish it sooner and I got to hear more about the story, and I was just super happy. So I do have my little cheat sheet here of points that I made while I was reading the book, because I'm trying to do that this month and going forward, where if I'm reading a book and I think about a plot point in it that I liked or didn't like, I'm going to write it down. I might expand on how I do that later on. I'm just learning sort of what's going to work for me, because I do know that to help me be better at these types of videos, I need to have a clear, concise thought, as opposed to, like I said at the start, just gushing about how much I liked it and actually giving you guys reasons. So I already touched on a few of my non-spoilery things, but I just want to reiterate again, this was non-stop action. I loved how Mindee Arnett brought in her love of horses to the story, because the whole postal service revolves around riders. So these riders have to take letters and missives and announcements and things across to each of the different lands, so then that way they can sort of just all know what's going on in the world. But they can only do that during the day because, like I said before, the night drakes. So the people who get enlisted into this postal service are like so powerful, they're so strong, they can handle themselves, they have to go through training in order to be okay with actually riding out. One thing that I will say, as the day drakes started to become more prominent, they did put a halt on the female riders, which really sucked. And I can understand why that was a point in the story, because everyone thinks that women are so much weaker and things like that. You don't want to put them in danger, blah, blah, blah. But clearly, Kate can handle herself. Like, we have learned this in this story, but they still ground her, basically. She's not allowed to go out or do anything, which really sucks. But like I said, she proves that she can actually handle herself. And in doing so, she handles herself enough to be able to save the prince from certain death. More on that in a minute though. So we open up where Kate is in this town where she is a relay rider. She has two friends that she really can be herself with, and I loved her relationship with them. And while she's living in this town, those are the people that she's come to rely on. Those are the people who she has come to know as family, since she has no other family left. There is one character who also works for the relay named Bonner, who's basically the lead hand over all of the relay riders in that town. He appreciates her and he understands her and he respects her. He also knows that she is a traitor, as most people have now learned, but I did also like their relationship together. The other character who is part of the relay that they focus on is Court. Now, he is basically your quintessential jerk, and I kind of wanted to have more from that character. I wanted to have more of the antagonist side of things, and I wanted Kate to have to deal with it more, and I kind of wanted to bring Corwin in on it as well, because for the most part, Court was just Kate's own personal battle to deal with, but I kind of wanted to get Corwin in on the action, and I wanted that to develop a little bit more, which it didn't, unfortunately, but I still liked the idea of that type of a character. So while Kate's leading her life, the prince is making his rounds on sort of like a peace treaty, so he ends up coming into the town, and Kate's late for work because of the royal procession, and she's trying to book it through everybody in the crowd, and she ends up being caught by a guard because she's showing disrespect to the prince and everything like that, and she ends up being put in front of him to answer for the commotion. And that is the first time that they've laid eyes on each other for like 3 years since the essential banishment and the murder of her father, and she has such mixed emotions about it, and so does Corwin, and I understood each of their reasons for their emotions. I understood why she was so conflicted, why he was so conflicted, and it's just the way that Mindee Arnett wrote their internal dialogue to themselves, I just could really find myself understanding the rationale and the reasoning behind both of their thoughts and opinions, and that doesn't always come across in stories, so I really appreciated that, and it just made me love those two characters even more. There was one plot point that I also didn't really think served a purpose at the start of the story, and that was, well, otherwise than to sort of make Kate embarrassed, but it's the whole moon belt thing. I mean, it's a cool thing in theory where if you wear this belt, then you don't have to worry about conceiving a child if you're having the sexy times, but I don't know, like her friend gets it for her and she's like, hey, now you can be a little bit promiscuous and have some fun, blah, 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 blah. Kate's not like that though, but she still takes the belt because she wants Sing, I don't know how to pronounce her name, she wants her to know that she appreciates her friendship and that sort of thing. But when she bumps into the prince, it like falls out of her bag and he's all like, oh, well, she apparently has a lover or a husband or something, she's moved on. And that's really the only purpose of the moon belt. Like, it doesn't really come into play otherwise. So, yeah, I feel like that could have been done without, or at least do something more with it. Everything about Kate and Corwin together, though, I loved. These two are so cute and perfect, and I love them forever. And he really, really wants to do well by her, and she really just wants to protect herself. But I love those two together. I can't stop gushing about how much I love Kate and Corwin, and I could just talk more and more about how they interact and how they think about each other and how she can protect herself, but she can also protect him, and I could just talk about it forever. But I won't, because I have other points to make. This book had such well-developed and well-thought-through politics and world building that I really, really cannot wait to hear more. Like, as you're reading, they do talk about other lands, other towns, other cities that these relay riders have to go to, and that the politics are kind of getting a little bit hairy at, and I want to visit all of those places. I want to see what's going on. I want to figure out why this land is against this land. Like, I want to know these things after reading this book. And I hope that the next book does that, because I don't know how big of a series this is going to be, but this is definitely not a standalone. The magic system in this is also very cool as well. When I had first started reading it, I didn't understand quite the reasoning behind it, but as I read more, I understood it more, and I just got more and more invested. But basically, you have mages who work for the king and do all the legal stuff, but then you also have wilders who they're basically being the face of this rebellion and uprising that's happening, so everybody thinks that they're bad and everybody wants to kill them, and there's a big stigma about them. But obviously, like with anything, you could have, in this world, magic but not use it for evil, just like how in the real world you have weapons and things like that, but using them for good and evil is really down to the person. So that is a big, big thing that becomes questioned and brought to the surface as a topic in this story, which I really liked because it was kind of topical. It is kind of topical in regards to that. And it just brought forth such good arguments in that case as well. And with the realism of that and the actual topics that are being discussed, I also want to say that the characters have such clear opinions and have such a good progression of their character development that I felt the growth of each of these characters. Like, I saw them grow. I understood their growth. I appreciated their growth. There's some characters that start out really, really happy-go-lucky and loving life, but they end so defeated and so opposite to how they were, but for all good reasons. And that is something that I actually am not going to go too far into, because I want you to read it and understand the development for yourself and appreciate the development for yourself. But yeah, I have to give Mindee Arnett props for being able to do that, because, oh man, you think that there's something that can happen in a character's life that they're not going to get past, but then they do. Or you think that something happens that they're definitely going to pull through, but they don't. And it's so well done. I do also want to say that another character that I really liked aside from Kate and Corwin was Dowell, which is Corwin's like best friend from this time, like the 2-year span that Corwin went MIA. I love Dowell, seriously. I think that he is amazing. I love that him and Sing sort of get together and they have their relationship, and in the end how everything sort of comes together for those two, and they're just like a perfect representation of each other, and they just appreciate and respect each other, and it's just, it's so good. I'm really, really glad that that happened. And I'm also so grateful that there was no love triangle. Like, there are 3 characters that I thought there would be a love triangle with, but man, thank you, Mindee, for not making that happen. Now, I think another thing that helped this story really progress and move along at a good pace was that whenever there was the opportunity for downtime with our characters, she had time jumps, which were utilized so well. Like, there were weeks of time that she just skipped because there was going to be nothing super interesting going on, and she could just recap it, which really worked very well. And if you are still here and you still haven't read the book, I am going to say the reveal of the Nameless One, because I really don't want to spoil that. Like, that was so cool. Like, it caught me off guard. I wasn't even expecting that. I didn't think that we would get a reveal for that character in this book even. And I really liked it. And oh, Kate is a badass when it comes to the Nameless One, and it's just, it's so good. And now I'm going to talk about 2 main points that sort of brought this down a bit for me. I know there was a couple of things that I mentioned here and there, but really the 2 main things are Prince Edwin. Corwin and Edwin have to sort of complete these tasks to see who is the most worthy of being king, and Edwin's character, they set him up to be such a bad guy. Like, they set him up to be an antagonist, and he is in a way, but he's kind of passive about it, and it's just, it is what it is with him. I wanted him to be more in-your-face bad. Like, things happened between Kate and Edwin and Corwin when they were kids, and I wanted that to come forward more again, and I also wanted Edwin to take the lead over being kind of a bad guy, and that didn't really happen. He sort of just was passively a bad guy. And I don't know if that is a setup for his character going forward, like if he is going to turn better or if he's going to turn worse, things like that. A lot can still happen in the series with his character, but I just wanted more from him. I almost wanted him to be the Nameless One, even though that would be kind of a little too on the nose. I want more from Edwin's character. I want more bad. Like, they need to have a big bad. Like, I know Nameless One was a good one, but I need him to be bad. I'm just gonna keep saying bad a lot. The other thing that I needed more of was I needed more on-page development between Kate and her just discovered half-brother. He's a little kid. He's also a wilder, so his mother is keeping him hidden in secret. And Kate goes back and forth for weeks. For weeks, she is building this connection with this kid, but unfortunately, that is one thing that the time jumps skip. Like, when Kate is off with her brother, we're really focusing on Corwin, or we just have a time jump altogether. So we understand that she loves her half-brother, but there isn't that on-page development that I really wanted to appreciate it more. So when he gets taken away and sort of risked to be sold into slavery near the end, I didn't feel as much as what I wanted to, and what I know I should have felt for that moment. I was just like, oh, well, it happened. I don't really have a big connection with that character, so, I mean, set up for book 2, but yeah, I wanted more from those two, because a brother and sister relationship is super important. And the fact that she is learning all of this stuff about her father that she never knew about before, and she gets all these answers, I just don't feel like there was enough of a payoff there. But all that being said, my battery is dying right now, so I should probably be wrapping this up. I haven't even touched on half of the things that happen in this book, but I'm super excited to chat about it. So if you have read it, or if you're excited to read it, please leave a comment down below, because I really enjoyed this book so much. I can't wait, like I've been saying, for the next book to release, and I can't gush about it enough, so let's talk about it more. As always as well, I do have all the links to my social media in the description down below, so feel free to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. I do talk a lot on there, and I also have been dabbling more in Instagram stories, so that has been a lot of fun too. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content, because I do post videos every weekend, as well as bonus videos, which I know I say all the time, but I just want to remind you. And until next time, keep reading.